A man sits alone in a dark room. The silence is thick. In front of him, an old analog radio. He turns the dial slowly. Static, then voices, music, a language he doesn't recognize. Each station already exists. It always did. But none are audible until he finds their frequency. This isn't about a radio. It's about you and the timeline you're waiting for. That's already real. You've been told that your future is something to work toward, something distant, something you must build piece by piece where through years of discipline, self-improvement, and maybe, if you're lucky, divine timing. But what if that idea itself is the only thing keeping you stuck? Quantum physics doesn't describe a universe made of objects. It describes a universe made of vibrational fields. Everything you think is solid. Your body, your job, your relationships, your bank account is actually energy oscillating at specific frequencies. That includes your future. That includes the version of you who already lives in full alignment, expansion, peace, or purpose. So here's the paradox that breaks the mind open. You're not moving toward your new timeline. It's already present in the quantum field. You're either in resonance with it or you're not. Let that land. The reality you long for is not being withheld. It's being broadcast. But like the man in the room with the radio, you can't hear the music if you're on the wrong station. And most people are. Not because they're broken, but because their emotional and energetic defaults are tuned to the past. Not the past as memory, but the past is frequency. Every morning you wake up inside a vibrational echo. Your thoughts, emotions, and cellular responses don't originate in the now. They reactivate a pattern you didn't choose this morning, but that feels familiar. And the body, in its infinite loyalty to the known, continues to emit the same signal. I am this, I expect this, I believe this. That's the true loop. That's the real prison. And it has nothing to do with time. It's all frequency. Now let's go deeper. In quantum terms, your life isn't unfolding forward like a film reel. Instead, you exist inside a field of probabilities, a cloud of potential timelines. Each one equally real, equally accessible. The only reason one timeline solidifies into your experience is because your consciousness, through attention and emotion, keeps collapsing it over and over again. This is the observer effect, the foundational truth of quantum physics that consciousness selects reality. But here's the nuance that changes everything. You're not observing from your eyes. You're observing from your state. Your nervous system is a transmitter. Your heart is an amplifier. Your brain is an interpretive filter. These three work together to emit a coherent or incoherent frequency into the field. And the field doesn't judge. It doesn't negotiate. It simply reflects. That's why wishing, hoping, or even visualizing with desperation doesn't work. Because the signal being sent is not the image in your mind of blur. It's the emotion in your body. You can imagine abundance. But if you feel lack, the field matches lack. You can journal love. But if you embody rejection, the field mirrors absence. You can speak of trust. But if your energy screams fear, the timeline you access will be rooted in survival. This is the frequency paradox. You think you're moving through time toward your ideal future, but in truth, your body, your electromagnetic broadcast, is revisiting the same past again and again, disguised in new forms. That's why patterns repeat. That's why even with new actions, nothing changes, because the underlying frequency hasn't shifted. So here's the hard truth. Your new timeline isn't waiting to be created. It's waiting to be matched. Matched how? Not through words, not through hustle, not through perfection, but through resonance. Imagine walking through a building filled with locked doors. Behind one door is the version of you who is deeply fulfilled. Behind another, the version who feels free. Behind another, the one who leads, creates, loves, expands. The key, it's not a strategy, it's a signal. Your state right now either opens the door or keeps it sealed. This is why most personal development fails, because it addresses behavior without shifting frequency. You try to act like your future self while still vibrating as your past self. And the field doesn't respond to what you're doing. It responds to who you are being. But here's the beauty. Frequency can change faster than behavior. And when it does, behavior follows. In fact, the fastest way to access a new timeline isn't by changing your life. It's by changing your baseline emotional signature, the energetic flavor you carry moment to moment. When that signature changes, when you carry the same emotional tone that your future self lives in, the field begins to rearrange itself. Not slowly, not theoretically, immediately. Why? Because you've stopped requesting and started remembering. You've tuned in. The music was always playing. You just weren't listening from the right station. In the next chapter, we'll expose what's really keeping your signal locked into the old station and how your biology, more than your mindset, has been repeating a frequency that no longer matches who you're becoming. Because what you think is resistance is actually a memory. And the moment you stop energizing it, the static clears. There's something deeply frustrating about awakening to a new possibility, only to find yourself pulled back into the same emotional patterns, the same behaviors, the same loops that you swore you'd already outgrown. You've seen the vision, you felt the expansion, maybe you've even taken action, and yet somehow your reality echoes the past like an endless deja vu. But here's the truth. No one tells you. You're not stuck because you lack discipline. You're stuck because your body's loyal. Your consciousness may desire a new future, but your nervous system is still tuned to the survival patterns of the past. And that frequency, the one embedded in your biology, is what keeps you anchored to the old timeline, not as punishment, as protection. Let's break this down through the lens of neuroscience and quantum physics. Your body is not just a vessel, it's a memory device. Every thought you've repeated, every emotion you've indulged, every belief you've clung to has carved neural grooves in your brain and biochemical responses in your cells. Over time, your physiology becomes addicted to the emotional state most often repeated, not because it's good for you, but because it's familiar. And in the world of survival, familiar equals safe. This is the frequency lock, a state where your conscious mind wants something new, but your subconscious body is still emitting the signature of something old. That dissonance creates an energetic split. You may visualize abundance, but if your body still feels the stress of lack, the field receives the dominant signal, not the thought, but the frequency. The field, remember, doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you are vibrationally, emotionally, biologically. That's why affirmations often fail. Not because the words are wrong, but because the body is screaming a different reality underneath. The sentence, "I am free," cannot collapse a new timeline if your nervous system is still operating from the energy of captivity. This is not about blame. This is about precision. Let's go deeper. When your body memorizes stress, whether it's from trauma, heartbreak, scarcity, or shame, it begins to build chemical tolerance to that state. Cortisol, adrenaline, and stress-induced neurotransmitters flood the system, and your cells adjust to survive within that biochemistry. Over time, you feel normal only when you are activated. You mistake anxiety for aliveness. You confuse tension for motivation. You forget what peace feels like. Not because it's unreachable, but because it's unfamiliar. And this is the danger. Unfamiliarity feels unsafe, even if it's exactly what your soul is asking for. So when you begin to shift, when you start practicing gratitude, when you open your heart, when you try to embody your future self, your body,